Getting back on the chop top on the Camaro project. You guys, we actually got a couple comments. Wanting to see kind of, I guess, a type of finish, maybe metal work and that kind of thing. We will pre-fit some glass and show you some things. We're also going to show you some things in the metal work, and one of my aims is always been for the backyard guy. You can afford a welder, a 110 welder. I would suggest some 75% argon gas. It's just a little easier for startup welding than dealing with flux and all that kind of stuff. It kind of throws you off a little bit. And if you're going to start out welding, spend a few extra bucks and help yourself out. Normally we would TIG gaps and metal and joints and things that we're putting in to finish up, or we put the top together. But I'm trying to show you guys that a hobbyist can do this stuff at home, even rad work, really cool metal work. It's simple MIG. Most really pro metal guys will, tell you TIG and give you the highs and lows of cooling and heating welds, all that kind of stuff. Well, we want to bring you along in an affordable range. We can get the job done and still have a really nice product, a really good finish. So in a vehicle like this, there's a reason we're gapped a little more than normally. It's usually the thickness of a cutoff wheel. We can jump this out spot by spot, slowly, with a hot, quick spot weld. Control your metal, watch it. It'll tell you what's going on. You keep things smooth, keep things straight. You want to access, you're going to notice we'll be cutting out cell panels. We're going to show you a couple of these things. We want to be able to get to this, even if it's just hammer and dolly. Got some cool little affordable tools you can get on Amazon, internet, other tool places that can make things a little easier. I like to, as I get older, I like to find things that take away some of the headache of the physical side of things. Like, my hands don't work as good as they used to, so shear cutting metal with my hands is tough. We've got tools that help us do that now. The same way with hammer and dolly. And you hammer and dolly on something 8-10 hours, you get wore out. Got some really cool little pneumatic stuff we're going to show you that is really neat and does the work for you. So, okay, cool time to make a plan. We want to be able to wrap up some of the outside welding for the chop top. We want to be able to get into this weld, especially using a MIG, and show you guys how to kind of thin up a weld a little bit and do a little bit of hammer work, some planishing. We only have this little top piece of the Camaro part right here that's going to be basically left from stopping us getting through here. We've cut through the brace, so we know we want to get in there and tie that brace, so we could use some access for that. We know that we're going to do power windows, but we're also going to do power quarter windows. So we're going to be changing this panel since we're advancing into this panel, and we want to be able to get access to this and just make the brackets and such for the power drive motor and test this quarter glass. A lot easier if all this is out of the way. A lot of folks wouldn't go after that because it would kind of deconstruct some things, but if we're doing 3 areas and all this, we might as well take advantage of it. So I'm going to take this section out per our plan. We'll come back in it with new metal. We'll put part of this back in since it's part of the cosmetic features. Okay, now you guys can see we've gained access by taking the whole inner quarter out. And we're going to have a future bracket, like I explained before, for all the power window assist on the quarter glass. And we can build a panel here. We know we're going to build a bigger wheel well, so that's a lot of metal work. We have this retainer piece for cosmetic reasons, just a simple weld back in. Here's the cool part. We can get in here and not only rust treat, but we can actually bring this weld in on a grind line to thin up the weld with the grinders, and then we can go into hammer and dolly and we can control that cell panel and keep it really close. So get her up to primer, maybe a skim pass at best, but Give yourself access if you're making a plan on these cars and doing this much work. Okay guys, we were going after this big weld here. Wholesale panel, long bunch of metal, got a seam. We went ahead and chased out, but this is a wide open area, obvious some shape. And you know, the thing that we want to stress again, this was done with a MIG welder, and we had gap on purpose because gaps shrink. We used big wire. This is 035. It's kind of probably ridiculous, but I wanted to be past the point of average here just to show that you can do this stuff. You guys can use affordable, you know, very affordable hand tools and some good old elbow grease, your backyard MIG, and it's the details and the little tricks that help you out. If you notice in the time-lapse stuff, I'm going back and forth, jumping around. And the reasoning behind that is cooling. It just gives it time to cool and not cause such a problem. But if you also notice, the welds are they're really small, almost like a BB weld. Now let's face it, TIG welding is the glamour weld. Everybody wants to stack dimes, flow where you barely have to touch your grinder. It looks so dang good, you want to chrome plate it. But I'm talking to the average guy wanting to do some really cool custom metal work, not have a ton of fill in it, and find out why and what you can use that you can afford to do some decent work. And in this case, very long seam. We just did a spot at a time. We were patient. We took our time. But one of the things I like to do is, in using that, when we're dealing with a regular MIG welder, we run our temperatures up a little bit. We got an 03 tip. I will be out here, I'll probably be out here almost an inch back off the surface of the weld. So if my finger is the tip of that welder, and let's say it's going to do this little spot here, I'm going to be out here somewhere, and what happens, that wire goes out here and it just makes a little molten ball. And because it's heavier wire, because we're jumping a gap, and because it's quick heat, you just want to not even a second, it's just a touch. It's like just a buzz, 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 buzz. And the length of it, we're gapping so far away that the heat in a small area, minute, tight, is so small that it can only do so much molecule stretch. We have more weld than you would TIGging. We have a little bit of hammer and planishing work, and we'll go over some of that. But we're so close into keeping our shape here that when we do grind this material out, the extra actually becomes your buddy. We're gonna just stay on the surface of the welds with the grinder. We're gonna just take it down to where we need to be. Then we're gonna do a little hammer and dolly work. But I got a little something I use for that might be a little something that help you guys out. So with that said, we're gonna jump in and knock these grinding welds off, and that's really almost no fun to watch, but I'll high speed it anyway. I don't know if we'll actually even put it in, but we want to get down to where this is slick so we can do some hammer work and just have it ready for a coat of primer, maybe a skim coat, tops, and get on cutting some of these braces out and wrap up this chop top on the outside. We got some hand stuff here, really all affordable stuff. Grinder, so we used to call these stone or edge grinders. This one's really great for high speed, but it'll hurt your feelings if it grabs you. Now what's neat about this is this one has the thicker edge on it. And with a thicker edge, you can sit there and just concentrate on top of the welds. The hardest thing I ever had teaching the guys is when you grind your welds, just grind the weld. You don't want to chop into your material that you're trying to save or to keep, obviously. So a light touch, a little bit of creative nuance with your eye and hand coordination, just stay on top of the weld. And the other thing I highly suggest, don't stay there too long. Like the welder, move around. We're going to jump, we're going to hit spots, and we're going to collectively go back to it. Eventually, we'll get all the welds down. Now, we don't want to get them all knocked down with this. You don't want to do all your grinding with this. It's just like any other tool or device. You pick up something and you do a little more finishing work. We're going to go here and do a little shaping. At the same time, we're getting those welds flushed on out all the way down. Usually use an 80 grit disc on that. These are affordable tools. This is was a spin-on, 3-inch spin-on. They start out about like this. There's some old tin snips that you'd probably throw away. We use exclusively just to edge these down, because the one thing you want to do is keep a sharper edge. This allows you to get into the low areas, places that might valley in a little bit, places that might shrink in and give you a little dent before you planish. The idea is getting the weld down, not to just completely disappear, but flush enough to where you can actually do some metal work. So these do great. Keep your edge sharp, and it'll get in here in the small areas and detail spots that those big 5-inchers just won't get into. So with that said, a little small cutoff tool, most everybody uses these for just cutting sheet metal, and they're great at that. But I find if you're a little patient, easy on the trigger, not a whole lot of RPM, you can go in here and detail a weld in tough places to get to, and just take a little bit of time, and you can manipulate slowly, low RPM. You can get into a small area where you've got a ditch problem and you just want to tip that weld out and flush it out because you know you're going to be hammering later. You can do nice little detail work that's right in the edge, cracks, crevices, corners. Just take your time, go slow, look at the shape, eye-hand coordination. Last but not least, the enemy of my enemy. These little Dremels, they'll almost make you say words you shouldn't say, but at the same time, as long as you can hang on, keep your teeth clenched, you can get in an area, a corner, you can knock a weld out that's in a tight spot, like right here in this corner, and you just concentrate. Again, I suggest low, slow, and a little more time. Pay attention to just staying on the weld. Concentrate on the sculpting of that weld, and you can detail this stuff in to where it looks like it came that way. The last thing I like to do, this is a sander polisher. Works really cool because you can control the RPM, but with a little flat disc on it that we usually use for stripping or sanding, what they call busting mud or primer, getting surface areas ready. These old sticky back, really affordable. This is again Merca's low buck. And again, guys, we're not sponsored by anybody. Sometimes, though, in the way you use it, you can get a lot of life out of this lower buck stuff. It's the way you use it. People tend to want to burn up edges. You can see where this one started to crisp in. But we can come in here and flush and just clean our metal. Think of it like cleaning. All we want to do is clean it and kind of even it up. Now that we know where we're at, we're fixing to start some planishing. And there's lots of ways to do that. You can do the traditional hammer and dolly. There's a bunch of YouTube videos out there on guys just using their two hands, a hammer and a dolly, and getting low areas out where it shrunk in from tightening up the weld. Welds will, especially when you're jumping gaps, welds will open up and then they'll pull, and as they cool off, they'll get even closer. You'll actually see gaps just disappear with enough welds. That shrinking is so severe. But we know that we're going to get in here with a hammer and dolly from the other side, and we're going to attack on both sides, and we're going to hit that weld enough to where it smashes out those little molecules, spreads them back out, relaxes some of the metal around it, and we'll get this shape back in where it doesn't really need a whole lot of body work. So this tool, I want to introduce y'all to something really cool. I can hold this in my hand. It's really small, it's very light, doesn't weigh a whole lot, but you can feel like it's made pretty good, even though it comes from a far off foreign land. But it's affordable. Again, we're doing things on our end to where the average guy can get this stuff off the internet and do something in his backyard, carport, garage at home. You guys can do this stuff yourself. What's really cool about this stuff is making things that are kind of user-friendly, but it comes with all these little dolly heads that are almost completely useless for what we do. But I have found that some of them are pretty cool. The yellow one, it's like a hard polypropylene. It does pretty good, especially on like aluminum and stuff. Some of the really soft ones, and I mean some of these you can tell they're, I think it's this one, yeah. The old blue one's really soft. The red one's like spongy. I don't know, you could probably beat out a cardboard box with those. But like the black one, this blue one, we have used on aluminum panels. A little bit of sheet metal, like some simple soft dent areas. This thing is cool how it works. Excuse me. I've found that one of the things I actually like about it is there's no switches. If you notice, no switches. This thing simply works by, as soon as you touch it, it's hammering. I had to put, it doesn't come with it, I had to put a little air control valve, simple screw in, turn slot valve, turn it down a little bit, just so I could gain a little control. But you know, it's still hammering 100 times faster than I can hammer, so that's plenty good. We'll try and do a little demo here. Effectively, that's our dolly. If nice little piece of metal. Wow, oh, come on, you can see that dent. So in that, and what's really cool, like I said, it's quite fast. And even if it slightly overstretches, you can get in there and it'll planish. And you can turn it down enough where it just kind of tucks, barely goes. And she's right there. Little circle technique. And we're right there. That's just a gist on how this little dude works. What we're going to do is use it on the welds. And the neat thing about using it on the welds is I can hold this from behind, dolly on the front, I can reach a weld. I'll planish all the weld out on that Camaro, and you'll see that next. Okay guys, real quick, I know all of that was in high speed, probably y'all watching and stuff, but just some helpful tips. I mean, you know, we used our little palm dolly trick that you can buy anywhere, and just to planish that weld out. And basically what you're doing is that weld it's going to shrink, or as it cools off, it's going to pull that gap and pull it down. You almost get this like little slight V. Anybody who welds sheet metal is very familiar with this. And we want to planish that up and get it back out. And you're basically squeezing that weld back flat, and you're kind of stretching it back out. And as you stretch it back out, so a lot of your metal that's affected that got pulled in, it'll just go back to where it's almost like a metal memory. I like to call it metal memory. So all them little molecules relax. They're back in their little happy spot, and you get most of your shape back. One of the things I like to try and do is, out of all the dollies you can use, there's a ton of things, but I like to try and, if you notice, I like to try and find something that'll get me pretty close to shape. And when we started this, we could actually see the slight V right where weld was, obviously. So by going back behind with the planishing tool and pneumatically running through here just to lift it a little bit and really put the smack on it and really speed things up, then I come back behind it, as y'all probably saw with the small hammers, and we just want to even things up. And mostly you saw me your body positions gets like to be like a contortionist at times, but you'll get to where you're looking for that body shape. You're looking for all the more place and good old feeling. You just want to feel your work and you know you're close. We might peck around on this a little bit more. Some shops would easily fill this, but it's actually kind of interesting when you planish some of this out that it finds that familiar shape. It's really kind of cool because we had some really big tulips in here from the very long continual weld in a very strange shape and open metal, nothing to structure that. So the cool part is once this is all evened up, as you can tell by looking at it, your metalwork quickly gets really close and you just go on to the next thing. As we wrap up the chopped top, Levi's going to work on the back window next, and we're going to show you the kind of the finish on the outside of the chop, how it looks. This is what we were trying to get back to. You guys have been asking about it. Months ago, we kind of roughed it in. The whole car is being built per design, drawn out on paper, and all being done. So there's a lot of moving around on a project like this, from building the frame to building the structure of the car. But today we wanted to show y'all kind of an external wrap on some of the metalwork. A-pillars are all slicked in. One piece, we're preparing for how we're going to do our flush glass. We've got just some 3/8 solid rod that we're welding in here in place of the rain gutter. We want that line, that effect, but we want more of a molded, slicked in look. They had a very long linear line in the cell panel, probably the toughest part of the chop.
Oh, definitely.
Marrying all this metal together, the odd shape. Yeah, it really wanted to walk, but y'all see, as y'all see in this video, all that comes together. And you have this really pretty cell panel, and pretty soon we'll be addressing these quarters.
This was actually a section, huh? I remember
Yeah.
that now. That was actually all gone about an inch
Yeah,
or two.
and then we had to take out, because we're changing the structure of the inside piece, which we'll get to. But when we had to section out, that way it's easy to do the cosmetic surface stuff, and that's applicable. Then we'll go in here and we'll put in a full support, because remember we're doing that NASCAR style full halo roll cage. So we got a lot of changes going on the inside, and that's why we're building this car the way it's being built. Stock glass being flush mounted. Flush mounted is a hot ticket. It's really popular. It's really cool. Make it affordable. I'd rather, only because I can, y'all can create a different step. This would be somewhat, I'd say about 1/4 inch of material up, and then we'll add probably 1/8 inch of rod material. We'll recreate this step, and when we glue this in, urethane, the idea is this paint, like we explained before, its paint goes right into that glass. It really gives it a nice line, doesn't it? Yeah. You don't have that little bump up trim. I know guys that have trim made and fleshed out.
That comes out of the glass.
Yeah, it looks like a picture frame, and I'm okay with that. But what we're going for is an extremely stealthy Corvette meets Camaro. One of the clues is the wheels. Very strong, very powerful car. Really cool motor underneath it, and really cool driveline. And that's why the car's being built this way. And we're actually going for a little dare to be different, one of a kind deal. You may or may not like it when it's finished.
It's definitely got a Euro look going on.
Yeah.
With how the customer wanted it, with the faced wheels.
Different design cues from other influences.
I like this.
How about some of the wide body stuff?
Yeah, which my favorite aspect of this car is definitely the wide body all the way down the car, which is The widened front fenders and the Coke bottle going into the door and coming back out.
Yeah.
Because you can see right there where it tails in, goes back to the door.
The whole sweep.
You can see how wide it is right
We
here.
even slightly swept it out here. And remember, this is a 1968. We're using 69 aftermarket sheet metal. It doesn't fit that great, but that's the beauty of it. We wanted to fit our own way. I actually slightly changed the swell and how this fits the door. This is very, very subtle. You may or may not pick up on it. You really got to know, what your Camaros look like to pick up on some of this, the different components and parts. Even back here, part of our design, these famous gills that have been in the 69 Camaro 1 year only forever, we're actually going to do a version that opens this up and incorporate a true Grand Prix racing style cooling vane for the rear disc brake setup. We want to make this work. We want to make this look like it belongs. We want to make it functional and just, add to the badness of the car, its overall look, but taking some of the styling cues, making them functional, making them cool. You notice this huge wheel. We broke the rules. You can't put 20s on a Camaro. You're right. A lot of guys don't do it. It's the small wheel wells. It's the small line work. But again, we're doing what we want to do to the line work. We've only swelled the body open, but we're actually going to come in here, gap this, open this up slightly so we get a prettier frame. We still incorporate the design of the 69 Camaro, but this will be tuliped a little bit, and it'll add to the sweeping waistline design, Coke bottle design, as they say. This will be slightly flared. Instead of being back here where the Camaro was, you can see just naturally laying there. But when this part down here flares slightly, the forward part, even here at the quarter, will emphasize some of this and giving it a little bit more of that Euro kind of coming at you look. We just want a lot of flow. There's some really great lines in the 69, and I just want to express them a little sharper, a little bit more over, and kind of our own version of a car they didn't make. We can give you an idea of how wide some of this is. Yeah, and you touch there, and I'll go over here and show them the gap, just to give them an idea of how wide. Now split that in half, and you can see even the shapes and the work we got to do, the differences from 68 to 69, but you can actually see some of these crazy gaps. You can also see the shape from the header, how it tears out. We're just playing with little things, subtleties, to make the lines more aggressive, but make it look really cool. Even in the quarters, we took advantage of how they come. There's a seam line or a bond line in most of your quarter panels, and you trim this part off and you put the good mark or metal, aftermarket panel on there that you would normally use. I took advantage of it. I needed that inch, and I like the cool part about the deck and some of the newer Camaros. And again, a tip to the newer stuff that's out there now, and it just gives it that almost, I hate to say it, but kind of that Mopar hip. And we really wanted to get that back in kind of fat look, and it's gonna be as mean as it looks mechanically engineered wise. But we really wanted that if this thing rolls up on a Ferrari, the guy might think twice, which is what we're going for.